So this program here is designed for someone who wants to supplement their jiu-jitsu with a little bit of strength training. This program is not intended to make you a powerlifter or make you insanely strong. It's to make you stronger at jiu-jitsu. This is typically aimed for someone who practices jiu-jitsu 3 to 4 times a week and would like to add a little lifting in. So it's a 2-time-a-week program with day 1, which is more general strength day, and day 2, which is sports specific, kind of. I'm using that term very loosely in this program. But yeah, this is part 1 of a series. This is a general program. The next one will be, we'll have a prep phase that's much more specific and a peaking phase for a competition involved in it. So I'll put the outline of the program next, and I'll explain it a little bit. I'll just basically read it, but go over any little tips and tricks to add in. So here it is. So day 1, again, the general strength day. You start off with a squat. The variation is up to you. This could be a zercher squat, could be a back squat, high bar squat, low bar squat, pause squat. The variation honestly doesn't matter that much. Some sort of squat that makes sense. No, like trying to make it a partial squat. Do enough partial shit probably already. So a full range of motion squat, right? And starting out, you're gonna work up to a heavy single, which would be about 90% of your max. Doesn't be exactly that. Aim on the lower side if you're just starting out. And once you hit that single, you're gonna work to, after that, drop down to 80% of that single. So not 80% of your max, 80% of 90%, right? And then you're gonna do 3 sets of 3. Following up that, you're gonna do a vertical push, 5 sets of 3 at about 75% of your max. And your last set will be an AMRAP. And I'll talk about this more later, but you will go up 5 pounds the next week if you're able to hit 8 or more reps on that AMRAP set, okay? Not too complicated. And you're gonna do a vertical pull for 4 sets of 8. I'll talk about the intensity later. Preferably against bands. So for example, we're doing pull downs, would be against bands. Pull up, same thing. An easy way to attach bands to a pull up, to pull against it, is put a belt on, have a dumbbell on the ground, attach the band to the dumbbell to your weight, from the dumbbell to your waist, do a pull up. So essentially it should be easier here than it is here. It should get heavier as you pull down, right? Not the opposite way, no band assisted pull ups, it's not what we want. Followed by a single leg exercise. This could be a more hamstring dominant one, it could be a quad dominant one. Doesn't really matter so much. It will depend on your weaknesses and what you need worked on. And that'll be 3 sets of 10, essentially. Follow up with some shrugs, 4 sets of 20, it's kind of getting a pump. Going for the preference of unilateral shrugs, so 1 arm at a time, for example. It doesn't have to be, could be behind the back, could be in front, could be supinated, whatever, it doesn't really matter so much, the shrugs. And you're cool down with some easy ab work and some easy adductor work, so Copenhagen planks, for example, leg raises, for example. And day 2. So this is the more sports specific day. Again, I'm using it very loosely in this context, but you're gonna squat, which uses the same variation you did day 1, and you do 5 sets of 5 using 70% of your top single from the previous day, right? Pretty self-explanatory. Do some horizontal rows, 4 sets of 8 again. These would preferably be chest supported, trying to like not fatigue your lower back too much. There's already enough of that in jiu-jitsu. So for example, a seal row or a dumbbell row with like an incline bench, or a machine. It can be a machine, that's totally fine. And then following that, a horizontal press, be 4 sets of 15. Again, the last set will be an AMRAP. And I should say with the AMRAPs, they should be to technical failure, not absolute failure. So once your technique starts breaking down, that's good. And here again, you'll go 5 to 10 pounds if you hit 25 or more reps. And these will preferably be dumbbells or a multi-grip bar or a bamboo bar, something that's a little easier on the shoulders, works stabilizers a little more, because there's so much already joint issues with elbows and wrists and shoulders with people who do jiu-jitsu. So trying to minimize that a little bit, but also getting a little stronger pressing. And then a straight leg hinge. So for example, I should say a straight leg, it should be semi-straight leg, not completely knees locked out or anything like that. And this will be, for example, back extension. Could be a single leg back extension, preferably bilateral with these. Back extension could be an RDL, a straight leg RDL, pull-throughs that are kept semi-straight leg, anything like that. And again, the preference here is using a machine or an apparatus, not a barbell. But if you need a barbell, obviously you have limited equipment, that's totally fine. This thing's always gotta make noise when I make a video. And then some kind of tricep isolation, preferably against bands, 4 sets of 20. Just band pull push downs are perfect, for example. Again, it doesn't have to be bands. You don't have access to bands, it's totally okay. It could be using cables, whatever. It could be a JM press, but preferably against bands. And then a bicep isolation movement, so curl, for example. 4x20 again, preferably the supinated position because we want to keep your biceps and elbows healthy. That's a pretty common issue. I think it's the most common issue in jiu-jitsu is elbow and bicep issues, so try to minimize that. And you're gonna cool down with some light abductor work and ab work. So abductor machine, for example. And then progression's the next thing. So I'll post a little picture here of the progression. So the squats for your top set, you're gonna add 1 to 2% or maybe 5 pounds to that top single each week, and you'll base your following percentages, your subsequent sets, off of that new top single, right? You do this for 5 weeks. So by the end, you might be hitting 100%, probably not, but be smart about it, especially if you start with a conservative 90%, you shouldn't be hitting 100% the 5th week. And your 6th week, you will deload, right? For this deload of sorts, you're gonna hit your working sets from week 3 without the top single for both days. Okay, pretty simple. And then when the next cycle comes, you have a few choices. You can either continue with that current squat variation you chose if there's more room to grow with it. If you kind of like tapped out of it, you can switch progression or switch movement. Sorry. When switching movements, be smart about it. It doesn't need to be a huge change. It could go from a high bar squat to a paused high bar squat. You could change the type of barbell being used. You could switch to, you know, a safety squat bar, for example. It doesn't need to be drastic, but that's not a way. So you just kind of start over again for another 6-week cycle, right? Zercher squats are awesome if you do grappling. And then with pressing, I touched on earlier, you'll be adding weight if you hit a certain number on your AMRAP set, which will always be your last set. So it's kind of self-regulating, especially in jiu-jitsu. Like, you know, your strength varies a lot depending on how hard you rolled the day before, for example. So it's good to kind of keep it slightly self-regulating, not trying to push numbers too hard. And again, for W, if you had 8 or more reps for the vertical press or 25 or more reps for the horizontal press, you'll add 5 or 5 to 10 pounds. For accessories, this is important. You're gonna aim for an RPE about 8 to 8.5. So leaving like 2-ish reps in the tank every set. And you kind of want to stay within plus or minus 2 reps of the prescribed rep scheme. So if it says 3 sets of 10, you want to hit somewhere between 8 and 12 each set. And it's okay, for example, if you hit 12 the first set, 11 the second set, and then 8 the third set, it's totally fine as long as your RPEs stay about the same. And then when to progress on those is when you start hitting the plus 2 each set, and it's super easy, just add the weight a little bit. If you get to a point where it's kind of getting where you can't add weight at all, feel free to switch the variation. But again, be smart about it. It doesn't need a huge switch. And then really try to attack your weaknesses on it. So if you have, I don't know, if you're weak in the bottom, the tricep, maybe the jam press, for example, just be smart about what you're choosing. And so next, I'll just show you a sample week, simple setup. So here's that. That's pretty much it. Like I said, this isn't to make you a powerlifter. It's not to make you the strongest guy in the gym necessarily, but to get you stronger and stronger at jiu-jitsu. Hopefully build a muscle mass on too. The next program, like I said, will be a little more detailed. It'll be a little bit less fill in the blank, still have that to some degree, and will be aimed towards a prep phase and a peak for a competition. So that'll come a week or 2 or so. But yeah, if you run it, let me know what you think. Give it a shot if you do jiu-jitsu. It's pretty simple. It shouldn't be too fatiguing. It should be in and out of the gym within an hour, 15 minutes. It should be pretty easy to recover from, and like I said, get you stronger for jiu-jitsu, which is the goal. Thanks, guys.